Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're ranking every Zelda game by their stories. We'll focus on mainline Zelda games and exclude spin-offs or non-canonical entries. And since we'll be looking at these plots in depth, expect spoilers for every one of these legendary adventures. Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Number 19, The Legend of Zelda: Four Swords. This one hardly counts as a Zelda game, originally released as bonus content for the GBA re-release of A Link to the Past. Rather than weaving a compelling narrative, Four Swords was meant to give an option for the first time for multiplayer play on a Zelda title, with up to 4 players using a link cable to connect. The game is perhaps most notable for introducing the recurring villain Vaati, although he lacked a backstory or much of a character at this point. The plot of the Four Sword and sealing Vaati within it exists mostly as an excuse to split Link into 4 versions of himself, each wearing a different colored tunic. Number 18, The Legend of Zelda. The very first Zelda was incredibly revolutionary in numerous ways, and containing any semblance of a story was revolutionary for the time. However, compared to the games it would inspire, both within and outside the Zelda series, there wasn't much there. Because of technical limitations, a single paragraph of questionably translated backstory, introducing Zelda, Ganon, and the Triforce on the title screen was all the story in the actual game. There was a bit more context given in the game's manual, but even then, there wasn't much of a plot. Still, the basic formula of the hero Link setting across the land of Hyrule, gaining treasure, entering dungeons, and defeating monsters was established here. Number 17, The Legend of Zelda: Triforce Heroes. Another game that focused more on multiplayer functionality than a robust story, Triforce Heroes at least earns points for its unique approach. A follow-up to A Link Between Worlds and featuring the same incarnation of Link, the game heads to the never-before-seen fashion-obsessed land of Hytopia. In Hytopia, Link must break a curse on Princess Styla, who can only wear an unappealing brown jumpsuit, by defeating the one who cursed her, Lady Maud, ruler of the Drablands. All in all, the plot is silly and fun, but lacking depth and substance. Number 16, The Legend of Zelda: Four Swords Adventures. Following up the original Four Swords, many of that game's mechanics are repeated. However, Adventures fleshes out its story mode beyond the rupee collecting journey from the original. Of course, compared to many strictly single-player Zelda games, this one is a bit bare bones in the story department. The game begins with Dark Link freeing Vaati from his prison within the titular Four Sword, and Link setting off on a rather by-the-number quest to defeat him. In a twist that had already appeared in a few Zelda games, Ganon was revealed to be the villain secretly pulling the strings all along. Number 15, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. As the name would imply, Zelda 2 is a direct sequel to the original Zelda. Released less than a year after the initial title, it had many of the same technical limitations. It also appeared on the NES, making a complex story once again impossible. The game, however, shifted to an RPG style and featured more complex and interesting NPCs for Link to interact with. Much of the plot was gleaned from the game's instruction manual, this time concerning a different Princess Zelda, who had been placed under a sleeping spell that must be awakened by Link. All the while, Ganon's minions seek to kill our hero to revive their master. Number 14. The Legend of Zelda: Phantom Hourglass. A direct sequel to The Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass sees the return of the Great Sea setting that helped set that game apart. The Link from that game returns, as does the game's version of Zelda, the pirate captain Tetra. It also introduces other new characters and companions for Link, most notably the morally scrupulous sailor Linebeck and the malevolent monster Bellum. While these new characters and the mysterious ghost ship do add some variety to the story, many other beats are fairly formulaic. That, and the decision to make the formerly headstrong Tetra a largely absent damsel in distress, keeps this one from being higher on the list. Number 13. The Legend of Zelda: Spirit Tracks. Picking up 100 years after the events of Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks swaps ships for trains, featuring a new incarnation of Link, a conductor in New Hyrule. While Zelda is also captured early on in the game, Spirit Tracks subverts things by having her accompany Link in spirit form. With her by Link's side throughout the game, a strong bond is formed between them, and she is much more well-defined as a character than perhaps any other game. A spectacular finale to the game that pays off both Link and Zelda's arcs, while implying a romantic future for them, is one of the best endings for a game in the franchise. Number 12. The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap. In his final appearance to date, we finally got a backstory for the mysterious wind demon, Vati. Here it's revealed that before he was the fearsome demon, Vati was a dark sorcerer of the thumb-sized race known as the Minish. The Minish helped to make the game one of the more light-hearted entries in the franchise, with Link's companion being Eslo, a talking magical hat that can shrink Link to Minish size. In the course of the adventure, we learned that Eslo was once a member of the tiny race as well, and Vati was his traitorous apprentice. We also finally get an explanation for the Four-Sword, known then as the Picori Blade, sharing the name the Hylians have given to the Minish themselves. Number 11. The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. Designed with an eye on being the spiritual successor to A Link to the Past, Between Worlds evokes the events of that game. In the game's present, Link begins as a humble blacksmith apprentice, who gets swept up in a grand adventure to save two kingdoms, Hyrule and its counterpart, Lorule. The princess of Lorule, Hilda, summons Link on his quest to destroy the Lorulian sorcerer Yuga, who eventually fuses with a revived Ganon. However, the game features a last-minute twist where Hilda betrays Link in an attempt to save her own kingdom. The surprising final revelation and more complicated moral questions serve the story well. Number 10. The Legend of Zelda: Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. Arriving at the height of Pokemania, Zelda sought to cash in on the paired versions that had helped another Nintendo franchise become a phenomenon. Unlike Pokemon, these weren't two versions of the same game, but two separate games with their own storylines, game mechanics, and even regions. On their own, they might rank lower on this list, with Ages having a slightly more interesting story than Seasons. What really made the story great for those games was their interconnectivity. They had a secret ending featuring Zelda and a confrontation with Ganon that could only be reached by getting through the plot of both individual games. Number 9. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Truly the first Zelda game to have a real substantial storyline, A Link to the Past, as its name would imply, was set hundreds of years before the first two games. The beefed-up plot was in no small part thanks to the technical advancements of the Super Nintendo, allowing for more text and dialogue. It involved visual storytelling and a much richer plot with a parallel dark world. While it was still far off from the complex plots that would be available in later generations, the storyline where Link must retrieve the Master Sword and save 7 sages to save Zelda and slay Ganon became the template for future Zelda games. Number 8. The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom.
Rauru placed his faith in you. And that was all you could do.
How do you know our names?
The open world of the Switch Zelda games put a huge emphasis on exploration, and how the story is doled out is no exception. It begins when Zelda and Link stumble upon the mummified corpse of Ganondorf, with Zelda thrown into the distant past of Hyrule's founding. As Link explores Hyrule, finding the titular tears, Zelda's time in the past causes the mysteries in the game to be slowly brought to light as well.
A time so far back in the past, it's become legend. So it's true. This is really the era of Hyrule's founding?
As Link grows closer to reuniting with Zelda, he also grows closer to a final confrontation with Ganondorf, all culminating in a spectacular final moment when the princess and the hero are reunited across time.
You did it! Oh, Link, you really did it!
Number 7. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
You are the light. Our light. That must shine upon Hyrule once again.
Breath of the Wild begins, like the very first Zelda, by dropping Link into a desolate but beautiful world with only an old man to immediately talk to. It also begins with a mystery. Link awakes from a long slumber possessing no memories.
Open your eyes. Wake up, Link.
Like its successor, Tears of the Kingdom, the story is given in chunks when Link arrives at special areas. Throughout the game, Link learns of the calamity that caused the apocalypse, and of his ultimately unsuccessful attempt to prevent it, leading to his century-long rejuvenating coma. Beyond just the cutscenes, though, even the world itself does some truly spectacular environmental storytelling. Number 6. The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. As we've seen, Zelda is a series that has utilized its traditions and familiar beats to great effect, which is why the story of The Wind Waker was such a bold one. The narrative is one about not clinging to the past, with Ganondorf seeking a return to the status quo. While the game honored many of the conventions of past Zelda games, even featuring callbacks and Easter eggs, it still put forth the message that preserving the past should never be an excuse for destroying the future. Ganondorf himself is transformed in this game from a megalomaniac to a poetic and almost tragic figure, while Zelda became the bold and cunning pirate captain, Tetra. Number 5. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. If A Link to the Past crystallized Zelda conventions, and Wind Waker reinvented them, then Ocarina of Time perfected the formula. Considered by many to be the greatest video game of all time, its story is a huge part of the reason. Ocarina is a true fantasy epic in every sense of the word. A young boy without a fairy is given a noble quest by a dying magical tree. He must literally and figuratively grow up quickly to vanish the forces of darkness that threaten his world. He meets and must eventually leave behind friends, fight dastardly enemies, and travel across a land full of history and lore. Number 4. The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword. Some might complain that aspects of Skyward Sword's gameplay were hurt by the more linear style than some open-world games. The plot, however, was helped significantly by this decision, setting Link on a more definite trajectory. Rather than having important story beats play out only as backstory, the story unfolds largely in the game's present. This is helped by the game taking place before any others chronologically, meaning that we get to experience events like the forging of the Master Sword. It details the beginning of the struggle between good and evil, with the original Link and Zelda facing off against evil incarnate in Demise. If that wasn't enough, rival-turned-ally Groos's character arc is just fantastic. Number 3. The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. Beginning as an after-hours unsanctioned side project, Link's Awakening was strange and unshackled from conventions from the start. The game removed familiar elements like Hyrule, the Triforce, and even the series' namesake, Zelda. Instead, it was set on the dreamlike island of Koholint, filled with colorful and fascinating NPCs like Marin that brimmed with interiority and their own unique quirks. Link gets to know many of the strange islanders as he discovers that they and the island itself are a dream of the Windfish, which Link must wake from its slumber in a giant egg on a mountain if he is to leave. The result is a truly existential and unique tale. Number 2. The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. There's something hauntingly beautiful about the somber tale told in Twilight Princess. The game concerns itself with themes of light and darkness and the twilight that exists between them. This gives it a truly epic feel that places it alongside the greatest pieces of fantasy fiction ever made. The characters in Twilight Princess stand out as well, with the bizarre and frightening Zant, the townsfolk of Ordon, including Link's childhood friend Ilia, and of course, Midna. She, the titular Twilight Princess, is Link's greatest companion, serving not just to tell the player what buttons to press, but to take them on an emotionally thrilling odyssey. Number 1. The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. Following the events of Ocarina of Time, Link is mugged and cursed by the Skull Kid, then trapped in a 3-day cycle attempting to save the land of Termina from destruction. The main story is spectacular as Link visits the four corners of Termina and its people, dealing with the anger, despair, and depression as imminent death hangs above. However, even more important are the intertwined side stories. Link interacts with the land's many colorful inhabitants, getting to know them intimately as time repeats itself. Whether it's reuniting star-crossed lovers or defending a ranch from aliens, Majora's Mask is overflowing with incredible characters with their own heartbreaking and wonderful stories to encounter. Which Zelda storyline kept you up for days playing till the end? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to MojoPlays for more great gaming videos every day.
I have so much to tell you. So much happened. Oh, Link. I'm home.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, there's more where that came from.